Welcome to the latest episode of Trojans Wired, the podcast, which is an in-house production of the website Trojans Wire. We are part of the College Wire Network. Back at you with our USC women's basketball show and USC women's basketball analyst Cece Clay. And remember to subscribe to her YouTube channel, Let's Talk USC Women's Basketball. Another win for the Trojans, 24-2, 14-1 in the Big Ten. And by the time you listen to or watch, if you like the video edition, this podcast, by the time you're taking in this podcast, we will know the result of UCLA's Thursday night game against Illinois. So Trojans are going to be following that. But basically, if USC can beat Illinois this Sunday, this is a product of the win over Michigan State, which we're about to discuss. If USC beats Illinois this Sunday, UCLA has to go 4-0 over the next week and a half to guarantee a split Big Ten title. If UCLA stumbles just once and USC wins that Illinois game, Trojans are guaranteed to have at least a share of the Big Ten championship. So it's getting very serious, and that Michigan State win definitely accomplished something tangible for this team. So, Cece, we'll talk about this Michigan State game, but let's start this podcast with a little shout out.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Appreciate it. I had the opportunity to sit next to a young lady at the post game press conference last night, and we struck up a conversation. And I just want to give her a shout out because she was really nice. She's a young student writer for USC Annenberg Media. Her name is Mia Nunez, and I want everybody to go to Annenberg Media and check out her stuff, read her stuff. She follows women's sports. And as no, I don't know if you know this, but at Annenberg Media, it's really male dominated as far as the sports is concerned. But Mia is one of the ones who follows the women's sports, and she's on top of USC women's basketball. And she was a pleasure to talk with last night. I loved our conversation. So I want everybody to go to Annenberg Media and check out the story that she just wrote about Juju Watkins leading the women's basketball team to a win last night. Again, her name is Mia Nunez. Thank you, Mia, for your support and watching my stuff. And I look forward to talking to you more.
All right, great. Great start to the show. Let's now get into this Michigan State game. Cece, your top line observations and takeaways from this game, what you saw.
Yeah, I thought the Trojans came out really strong. They came out aggressive. They were fast. They were handling their business. Shout out to you. This time you made the right prediction in them playing with two bigs for most of the game, which kind of surprised me. I thought they would go with the four guard lineup, but they didn't. They kept Rhea in for most of the game, and Clarice and Kiki substituted those three the whole game. And they did go four guard for a couple of times during that game, but for the most part, they stayed with the two bigs. But through three quarters, they were really, really good. And then in that fourth quarter, when Michigan State started pressing us, we kind of fell apart. And I think, too, it's because in that fourth quarter, we thought that we had the win. So I think we just got a little laxed. And then when they put the pressure on us, we kind of just stumbled a little bit, but we did enough to hold on. So really proud of our Lady Trojans, and we can do a deeper dive into the stats as we continue.
We will get into the stats. One of the stats that obviously is a flashing red light, 23 turnovers. And it's interesting. Yeah. USC has won two different games this month in February, despite committing 23 turnovers. Beat Ohio State, despite committing exactly 23, and now beats Michigan State, despite committing 23. And it reinforces a point that you and I have both talked about. USC's winning and winning and winning, even when there are some really, really bad individual, category specific stats on the stat sheet. And so just imagine when it all comes together, when USC's playing the defense, putting the ball on the bucket, like free throws. Free throws were a big part of the USC win. 35 foul shots earned. It's hard to imagine many games that USC is going to lose when it's getting to the foul line 35 times. But again, those 23 turnovers prevented this from being a complete game and an easier game. Just imagine when all the facets of this team are coming together. So my question for you is this. We've talked about USC having to deal with the logistical crunch of this schedule. UCLA Thursday, have just 2 days off, and you have to travel to Seattle, and then you have that game in Seattle, and you have to travel back, and you have just 2 days off. So really, to me, if you have 2 days off, but one of those days has travel, it's really like 1.5 days off. Michigan State got into Los Angeles Friday for the UCLA game on Sunday. Spartans have been lounging around in Los Angeles for several days. They had more rest, they had less travel. USC's had to deal with multiple situations like that in February. So when you look at the 23 turnovers, yeah, it's bad and it needs to be cleaned up. Reactions need to be sharper. Michigan State's press needed to be dealt with better. Everyone would agree with that. But how big a concern is it? Because USC's been playing with this rest and logistics disadvantage. Just getting through this game with a win is great. So how do you balance like the positive, hey, we won, we took care of business, versus, hey, there are these lingering problems, we need to nip this in the bud? How do you balance your reaction to the good and the bad for USC?
I want to address the travel because you made a good point on the traveling. When these young ladies have to travel to the Midwest or the East Coast, just like Michigan State, their travel to the West, each of them are gone 6 days. The difference is, like you said, Michigan State doesn't have to travel in between UCLA and SC. They're still in LA, whereas UCLA and SC, when they travel to the Midwest or the East, they have to travel another 4 hours or another plane ride to that next school. So it's not a day of rest, which is a big deal. But one thing I will say, it was addressed in the post game. If you guys didn't watch the post game press conference, go watch it because Lindsay did say that there's going to be some conversations about next year and the travel, and maybe we condense it or change the days to a Friday, Monday, or something like that, so they're not on the road so long. And the other thing is these Midwest teams, they only have to come out here once. So Michigan State once, Michigan once. The teams that travel out here do it once, whereas UCLA and USC are doing it 4 times during the whole year. It's just not balanced correctly. So they have to figure that out. And to address your other question, as far as the turnovers are concerned, I'm not concerned because now they're going to be able to rest. And why I'm not concerned is they did good. They had 12 turnovers through 3 quarters. And then in that fourth quarter, where they kind of fell apart, they had 11 turnovers. And most of that was by the press. And I think that press surprised them is because people were getting the ball that normally don't get the ball. And then they would dribble right into double teams instead of following their press break actions and following through with what they're supposed to do on their press break. So I just think it's just a technical little flaw, but I'm not too concerned about it. Um, they haven't had any problems with any press ever, and they were pressed by Ohio State. UCLA pressed them a little bit. They haven't been, you know, scared of any type of press. So this one I just kind of think threw them off. And the way Michigan State, they're very aggressive when they press. That's the difference. Whereas Ohio State's a little bit faster. So, but I'm not worried about it. 11 turnovers in that fourth quarter is a lot, but I'm not concerned. I think that they know the task at hand and they know it's crunch time now. And so I think that one other good thing is UCLA has to travel. So USC after Illinois, UCLA will have a week to prepare for UCLA again. Go over the film, make adjustments because they know that UCLA is going to make adjustments, whereas UCLA has to travel and they have a game Sunday and Wednesday, and then they travel back Thursday, and they'll probably take Friday off and have Saturday to prepare and then have to come back and play USC again. So I think that's great for us.
Yeah, USC had to deal with that Iowa, Wisconsin, Sunday, Wednesday road trip. Now let's see what the Bruins do. Absolutely. So yeah, USC's done most of the heavy lifting. UCLA still has to go through a little bit of a meat grinder this next week. So Trojans are hoping that this takes a little piece out of the Bruins. We will see. All right, we'll go to the stat board, CC, for your statistical breakdown in just a bit. But there's one more question I have on Michigan State, that game. And that is Michigan State, 1 of 13 3-pointers.
Yeah,
That stood out to me as a big number.
yeah.
Tell me, was this more about the length that USC was able to throw at this smaller Michigan State lineup, or was it more about just defenders being in the right spot, communicating on the perimeter? How do you balance those two dimensions?
I think what we're seeing is we're seeing our perimeter defense getting a lot better as the year goes on, and I think you're seeing too. Avery Howell and K9 are really starting to develop as defenders. I think our length did bother them. The Michigan State coach did mention that in the post-game press conference that USC's length and athleticism gave their team a hard time, and so it was hard for them to get to their open shots. So I don't think it was just about them missing their shots. I think that USC's defense had a lot to do with it. Yeah, one of 10, 1 of 10 from the free throw. I mean, from the 3-point line, 10% is just not like them. And they were 8 for 24 from the paint too. So defensively, we were really good for 3 quarters.
All right, let's just go through the stats. Other big statistical observations you wanted to make on this game, things that you found. I know that before we came on the air, you were noticing what happened in the fourth quarter, and that like there were the first 3 quarters, and then there was the fourth quarter. But anyway, chop up the stats and the big numerical observations you have for this game.
Yeah, so in the previous game that we played, remember I mentioned that we had 1 block or 0 blocks or something like that. And this game we came back again and we had 11 blocks, by 3 or 4 different players. So they just have a way with understanding where the ball's going to be and how to control their bodies. And even Ray, I think, had 3 blocks. And so I was really happy with her game last night. And again, I just can't get enough of Kennedy Smith. Kennedy Smith, again, her stat line. I mean, she doesn't pop out as the greatest player ever, but she's so steady in every game, right? She hits shots that she needs to hit. She does what she needs to do on defense. She never complains. You never see her. And again, she had a great stat line. She had 13 points. Let me see. Let me pull it up exactly. She had 13 points. Oh, I don't have it up here. She had 13 points and I think 4 rebounds, 2 blocks, and an assist.
Yeah, I mean,
So I'm just
she's always getting involved in various aspects of play, both ends of the floor. Like you can count on that each game.
yeah, and she was 100% from the free throw line. She had 4 free throws. She went 100% from the free throw line. She was 60% from 2 points, from the 2 point line, and she was 33% from the 3 point line. So she's just steady. And so we desperately need Kennedy. We cannot lose Kennedy, for any game, for any minute, and she played the third most minutes. She played 33 minutes. Juju played 39, and then Kiki played like 38 or something like that. And Kennedy played 33 minutes. So she's showing everybody, including the coaches, what a valuable team member that she is.
Yeah, I mean, as the season goes on, that Notre Dame loss gets magnified by the fact that Kennedy Smith was not on the floor. Like that just becomes a
Yeah.
bigger thing as we go along and we see the gulf between how USC looked that day in November and how USC has consistently looked 14-1 in the Big Ten. Like that fact just grows as the season goes along. All right, other statistical observations from this game. Anything on Juju or Kiki?
Yeah,
Uh,
I was going to
I,
talk about Kiki. Kiki had
yeah,
a comeback game last night. Her EFG was 53.8. She was 7 to 13 from the 2 point line, which is over 50%. And the one thing that I noticed about Kiki last night was she had 5 assisted makes, meaning that we were getting her the ball. Right. And so I think we have to do that more. And Kiki came in last night. You could tell that she was mentally ready. She came in confident. She was asking for the ball, wanting the ball, being aggressive with the ball. 2 of her shots were unassisted makes. And to me, I'm happy about that because she's not really a playmaker. So when you see Kiki get unassisted makes, that's a big deal. So I'm really happy what Kennedy did. And of course, you can't say enough about Juju. Juju, 28 points. She took shots that she needed to take. She passed the ball. Her stat line was steady as well. So let me see. Oh, here, I have it right here. Okay, Juju shot 50% from the 2 point line. She wasn't so good from the 3 point line, but she was 50% from the 2 point line. She was 80% from the free throw line. She was 4 for 5. So, pretty good night for Juju. Juju's just steady as they come. I think that she could have went for 35 if we needed her to, but we didn't really need it to. And you could see that she's playing with more joy on the court. She's looking for her teammates. She wants her teammates to be successful. So, it's pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, seems pretty clear. The UCLA game brought back, that vintage Juju feeling, and
Yeah.
and I
And,
remarked at the time. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. One other thing I just want to mention is Avery Howell, because I never really give her flowers, but Avery Howell was 100%. She shot 100% from the floor last night. She hit two threes, and that's all she took was two threes. But she came in, she hit both those shots. She was very aggressive defensively. The team was like a +9 with her on the court or something like that. So she was very effective. She's sometimes too aggressive because she gets a lot of fouls, but Avery is doing her job as well, and we need her on the floor. So she hits shots when she needs to hit shots, and so just really impressed with her game last night as well.
You've said give Avery Howe more shots, and then when
But
she
yeah,
when she's hitting the 3-pointers as she did last night, it does make everyone at USC think, hey, like this is someone who needs the rock, needs to be able to get some shots. And you just imagine in March, Avery Howe hitting a timely 3-pointer,
yeah,
drawing the defense away from Juju Watkins, or at least making defenders hesitate that half second, that split second in terms of whether they double, whether they hedge. Avery Howe hitting threes, that's going to relieve the pressure on Juju and also Kiki. Just such a potentially big ingredient of a USC run deep in the NCAA
yeah.
tournament bracket.
And I
Anything else?
thought
Go
defensively,
ahead.
yeah, defensively, I thought we were really good. I mean, we held our own, except, like I said, we had that breakdown in the fourth quarter, but that was more due to their press and us just turning the ball over. But defensively, I mean, we were up by 21 points.
Yeah.
I mean, we took it to them, and defensively, offensively, they could not score against us. And that's the other thing that the Michigan State coach said in the press conference was that USC makes it really hard, for a team to score on them. By the way, I want to throw out a stat because I bet you didn't know this, and I bet our listeners didn't know this. USC, they have, they points allowed is 57 right now. It might go up a little bit higher because of that game last night, but currently right now, their points allowed is 57 a game. Did you know that this current team is the best team as far as points allowed than any other team through 81-82? That's the last year that I could look up was through 81-82. No other team has got the best points allowed average other than Lindsey Gottlieb's 2022-23 team at 55 points a game. Can you
Now,
believe
now,
that?
now, that is a whopper. But as you were saying this, I was thinking the 2023 team was really, really good on defense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just
Go figure that it's two of Lindsey Gottlieb's team that had, with Beth Burns, because the
yeah.
other team, they allowed 58 points was Cynthia Cooper's team when Beth Burns was the assistant coach there. But other than that, since 81-82, no other team other than a Lindsey Gottlieb team has had the best points allowed defense, since 81. That's remarkable. And I got one more for you. Highest point scored, like they're averaging 82 points a game, 82.1 points a game. This team is currently the number one ranked USC team since 1986-87 in scoring. That team, 1986-87, was led by Sherry Nelson at the time. So since 1986, 1987, there's been no other team to average the point totals that USC is averaging currently right now. So there's some stats that I want to give, for all the listeners out there and for you, Matt, that you probably weren't aware of. And so if anything should impress you when you guys talk about this defensive team and talk about how many points they can score, and it's just a Juju-led team, no, because this team is one of the best teams that USC has put on the floor since 1981-82 for defense, and since what did I say, 1986-87 for offense. That's just incredible. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. So the overall point differential is average point differential is plus 24, 82-58.
Yeah,
Like that's dominance. Like
that's crazy,
that's
right?
elite. Like imagine an NBA team doing that over 82 games. That would be unheard of.
Yeah.
So
It's when
it's
I, yeah,
crazy.
when I looked up
That's
those stats,
crazy.
I just got curious and I was like, I want to, nationally I know where they rank, but I wonder where they rank compared to other teams offensively and defensively. And when I saw that, my mouth dropped and I said, geez, I got to talk about this on the podcast because that's a stat that I bet you Lindsay doesn't even know. So Lindsay, Coach G, if you're listening, tell this to your team. Give them something to be proud about. That they're one of the best teams USC has ever put on the floor, both offensively and defensively. Shout out to Coach G, by the way.
She has been knocking it out of the park in February, and there's a connection here. The Ohio State game and the Michigan State game, they were both played really under a very similar set of circumstances. Ohio State in town to play UCLA. We referenced this earlier in the show. A Midwest team that comes to LA, plays UCLA first. They don't have to commute to for the USC game. They're just based in LA. They get to rest for several days straight while USC is playing a road game and is flying back for a home game on short rest. Only 2 days between games. USC was energized and ready at the start of the Ohio State game, energized and ready at the start of the Michigan State game. That is coaching, folks. That is a coach having her team ready on a short turnaround against an opponent that has more rest. That's coaching. Coaches get that put together. Coaches create the program, and let's get a shout out to the training staff for keeping these women fit,
Yep.
enabling them to recuperate, to rejuvenate. Like this is a first class operation, folks, and just we can give Lindsey Gottlieb a little bit of criticism for like when Juju Watkins wasn't scoring earlier in February, certain things weren't happening. Okay, like it's a coach's job to do a few things better. Let's be sure to give these coaches credit when they do well. And Lindsey Gottlieb, like she's been Shohei Ohtani in February. Just these 500-foot moon shots, really just hitting it way out of the park in so many difficult preparation situations. So in the NCAA tournament, we talk about like Tom Izzo. He's the master of the turnaround on the second game of the weekend in the NCAA tournament with that 1 day to prepare. And we talk about Rick Pitino. He's like 14-1 all time in the Sweet 16. Like these are masters of the art. Lindsey Gottlieb is a master of the art. She belongs with the other big hitters in the sport. Got to give her flowers, Cece.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks. She deserves it. Her whole coaching staff and Coach B too. Coach B is a big part of this defense. It's her system. It's her defensive system. So shout out to Coach B, Coach Deli, Coach Courtney Jacob, all the coaches, all the trainers that really have helped put this together. Even the nutritionists that feed them what they need to feed, keeping them healthy, not getting the flu, having them take their immune shots and all that, not shots, but their immune juice shots and all that kind of stuff. Good for them on doing that. So you're right. It's a whole team of people. And that's the other thing that I don't think people realize is that, people aren't sitting in the trenches with this team. People aren't sitting in the fire with this team. A lot of fans are sitting on their couch guessing what should happen or what shouldn't happen, but they're not in the fire with this team. They're not the ones have to manage 15 girls, 7 young freshmen, keeping them healthy, making decisions on what system or what offense to do, what defense to do, whose parent do I have to talk to today, or you know what I mean, so on and so forth. There's just so much that goes into coaching, and people just don't know until they're put in the fire what really goes into it. So yeah, shout out to them. They're just doing a remarkable job this year, with these 7 freshmen especially. Just imagine having to coach 7 freshmen into a new system, and then you got 2 kids that you got to go home and take care of as well. So I couldn't do it, man. You almost have to be superhuman to be a D1 coach for a high level team because you have to be able to take the criticism. So you have to have thick skin. You have to be able to deal with the mental challenges that the players go through. You have to be able to deal with everything that comes your way. So you have to be superhuman on the D1 level. I'm talking about any school, not just SC, but any school on the D1 level. You have to be superhuman because now cameras are on you. You know what I mean? And everything's your fault, even when it isn't. So.
Amen to that. All right. We're going to let you promote your USC women's basketball channel on YouTube to close down the show. But first, before we do that, just a brief word about the next opponent, Illinois. Obviously, we're recording this podcast right the day after the Michigan State game. And so we're actually doing this right as the UCLA Illinois game starts Thursday night. So like we can't tell you what happened in the Illinois UCLA game. We don't have that film to go by, but just a general word about a very good Illinois team that's going to be in the NCAA tournament, is in the upper tier of the Big Ten standings. Just a few thoughts about Sunday's senior day game against the Illini.
Yeah, that's going to be emotional for me because, I've been following Rhea and Clarice since they were freshmen. So I'm probably going to get emotional during that game because, Rhea, I've just seen her since a freshman all the way up to now. And it's going to be hard not seeing her in a USC jersey next year, or Clarice, so should be a fun game. I think it's going to be really emotional for those two and for Coach G because she got Rhea and Clarice to stay. You know what I mean? And that was her number one thing when she got here. And she says it all the time. Her number one job was to re-recruit Rhea and Clarice and all the other team players that were on that team to stay at SC. So I'm sure it's going to be emotional for Coach G as well. So it should be a fun game to watch. Illinois, I think they're in fifth place right now, fifth or sixth place. They are in the upper half of the conference standings. The one thing about Illinois are there some fighters. They're playing with 7 people. Their main player got hurt, and there's Makara Crooks is her name, and they're still playing really well without her. But they only have 7, so I think that our depth is gonna outdo theirs. I'm curious to watch them play against UCLA and to see if Lauren Betts is playing in this game. So yeah, I'm going to go watch this game after we get off this podcast, but should be a fun game. They're another team that likes to move up and down the floor. They're not that big. They're guard heavy as well. So it should be a fun game. And I can't wait to see how USC performs for Rhea and Clarice on their senior day.
Going to be fun. 1 o'clock local time, by the way, and it's going to be on Fox Sports 1. So none of this Peacock business. You're actually going to be able to watch it on a easily accessible network. Of course, Cece's going to be on site, but for people watching at home who won't be able to make it there, it's going to be on Fox Sports 1, easily accessible. All right, let's close the show by enabling you to tell us what's coming up on your YouTube channel. Let's talk USC women's basketball.
Yeah, so tomorrow I'll be uploading my film room and game recap from the Michigan State game. I'll be doing that tomorrow, so look forward to that. I'm not sure if I'll be at the UCLA game yet. I'm waiting on confirmation for some credentials. I should be getting them. And then for the Big Ten tournament, I will be there. I just got notified that I am getting media credentials, so I will be heading out to Indianapolis the week of March 5th. I'll be heading out there to do some things and hopefully we'll be able to do some live stuff. I don't know yet. I gotta see what's going on. Yeah. It's overwhelming right now because I didn't know that I was going to be able to get media credentials, but hey, I guess they think I'm worth it.
Well, we certainly think you're worth it, and we'd like to congratulate you here at Trojans Wire. I'd like to congratulate you on getting those credentials. And for everyone listening to this podcast, yes, the Big Ten women's basketball tournament is Wednesday, March 5th through Sunday, March 9. USC and UCLA are going to be the top 2 seeds for the Big Ten tournament. So that means they both get a double bye. So they're not in the first round on March 5th. They're not in the second round on March 6th. Their first games will be, and USC's first game will be Friday, March 7 in the quarters, and then the Saturday semis, Sunday final. That's going to be the schedule. So we're thrilled that Cece Clay is going to be at the Big Ten women's tournament in Indianapolis. All right, so Illinois next. Cece, we will see you on Monday to talk about that Illinois game. Thanks again for joining us here on the Trojans Wired USC Women's Basketball Podcast.